Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 342. We're doing our Week 7 NFL picks against the spread. Joined once again by Jacob Kamiker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you? And how's your Week 6?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a good weekend. My week 6 was only okay. I went 6-8 against the spread. So I'm 3 games under 500 on the year, 45, 48-1. I had trouble with the primetime games outside or standalone games outside of Thursday Night Football, which I got a little lucky on. Nick Sirianni going for 2 there. I thought the Bills were going to play better than they did against the Titans because I thought they'd be motivated to avenge their loss last year. Just overlooked the fact that they were coming off that high-end win over the Chiefs. I know we had talked about that last week, and I made the mistake of betting Ben Roethlisberger as a favorite, which doesn't seem like a good strategy anymore, even against the likes of Geno Smith. So learned a few things, though, so that's never a bad thing. So hopefully bounce back and get back to my winning ways soon enough.
I always say it's never a bad week if you learn something. So definitely a positive to take out of that. I had a good week, just 7-7 overall on my picks, but on selections of 3 or more units. I think I was 5-2 or something, or 4-2, 5-2, something like that. But what really hurt, I mean, it would have been a great week if the Patriots had covered. They were winning the whole game. Dallas had a lead after that pick 6, but they were winning for most of the game. And then it went to overtime. And I feel like if you have a 3.5 point underdog going into overtime, you probably had the right side, right? So it's unfortunate that it didn't work out. Dallas had to throw that touchdown back to CeeDee Lamb. It was just so painful. And like we've had so many bad beats this year. Like I feel like if we hadn't, I would have freaked out. But as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh my God, not again. Like that's all I said. I'm like, all right, whatever. Just move on to the next game. Feel like we've had a bunch of those. But hopefully, the tide is turning because 2 out of the past 3 weeks have done pretty well. So let's hope for a good week 7. I like this slate, even though there are 13 games. Before we get to it, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, and visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would help us out a lot. This first game is Thursday night. It looked like a good game a couple weeks ago when the Broncos had a winning record. They were 3-0 several weeks ago. The Browns had an excellent record as well. They've both fallen on hard times. They both have a ton of injuries. Now the Browns are -3.5. They opened at -6, and the spread dragged down because Baker Mayfield might miss this game. So with all that in mind, who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Broncos in this one. The Browns just have too many injuries for me to trust them. Like if you look, they had like 20 guys on their injury report. And I know that the Broncos are a little bit banged up too, but I can't be taking the Browns as a 3.5 point favorite, not knowing who's going to start at quarterback, not knowing who's going to start at offensive tackle, and not really knowing who's going to start at receiver even. Like their offense is just decimated. I'm worried that Baker Mayfield's going to try to play through that shoulder labrum injury, which he says is completely torn. Which sounds like a terrible idea to try to play through something like that. I'm not a doctor, but on a short week, this doesn't seem to make any sense to me. And Baker has struggled in his career without quality blocking in front of him. We don't know what Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin are going to be able to do this week. And they're already without their top swing tackle, Chris Hubbard. He's on IR. So if one or both of those guys is out, you're talking about being down 2 or 3 of your top 3 tackles. We saw Baker under tons of pressure last week against Arizona because of that. And I think that the Broncos are going to be able to get a ton of pressure on him too. I know their pass rush isn't quite as potent because Bradley Chubb's hurt and I believe he's on IR. But they still have Von Miller. And if Baker Mayfield has a shoulder injury, it's going to be hard for him to like make the plays when he's under pressure. And Mayfield in general during his career has not been good when he's under pressure. In games where he's been sacked 4 or more times, he has a 3-13 straight up record. So when they're a 3-point favorite, that makes this look appealing for Denver. And Denver has been getting 2.3 sacks per game. So, they'd have to have a good pressure game. But if the offensive line's that banged up, then I think they'll have a good chance to do that. So I'm going to be on the Broncos here for a couple of units in all likelihood. I know that they're banged up. I know Teddy Bridgewater stopped playing as well lately, but I just have a tough time envisioning the Browns really fielding any sort of competitive team in this game just because of how banged up they are.
Yeah, so I'm going to side with the Browns for now. I could switch to Denver based on the injury report. If Baker Mayfield tries to play with a torn labrum, I'm probably going to be on Denver. I assume that he's going to sit out. You know, he didn't practice, or that theoretical practice that they would have had if they had one. He didn't practice. So that kind of tells me that he might miss this game. And if he does, I actually like Cleveland quite a bit because teams playing their backup quarterbacks often play pretty well. Good teams, I should say. And Case Keenum is a viable backup quarterback. You know, he was a starter in this league for a while. He took a team to the NFC Championship. I think he can get the job done against Denver, assuming the Browns have at least one of their tackles available. Now, if Keenum has to start and both tackles are out, then I'll probably be on Denver. So like we just don't really know what's going to happen here. But if Keenum plays and Denver or say Cleveland has at least one of his tackles back, I will probably be on the Browns, especially considering that the Broncos lost both of their linebackers. Josie Jewell is already on IR, and now Alexander Johnson is going to be on IR. So it just feels like the Browns have a good matchup over the middle of the field with all their tight ends, and Demetric Felton. I feel like he could have a good game. He's going to get more touches, obviously, with Chubb and Kareem Hunt out. So this game's so hard to handicap right now just because we don't know who's going to play. But I think there's more upside with the Browns if Keenum plays and the tackles are back.
Yeah, if the tackles are back, then I will like this game more. I have no interest in betting the Browns if Mayfield plays. Keenum's okay, but my only thing that I worry about with him is like what type of supporting cast is he going to have? Odell Beckham maybe has a better relationship with Beckham than Baker seems to. Maybe he can take advantage of the tight ends, but we've seen so frequently when the Browns can't run the ball, they have struggled. And that's what happened last week was the Cardinals took away their ability to run, and they were not able to do anything on offense until later in the game. So that's my one concern. Like maybe Dearness Johnson and Demetric Felton can kind of jumpstart that run game. I know Johnson's had good games in the past, but they've come against the Dallas defense when they were weaker. So I think Denver will be able to, contain them enough. But, if the tackles return and Keenum plays, then I might have to rethink this one. I still am probably going to be on Denver no matter what. I just might drop my unit count.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like Denver's going to be worse against the run with Johnson out and Jewell out as well. Like having those two absent linebackers over the middle of the field, I think it's going to hurt them a lot. And I think what you're saying about the receivers is definitely legitimate. I mean, Beckham has been a disappointment, hasn't meshed well with Mayfield. Maybe he has better luck with Keenum, like you speculated. Maybe Jarvis Landry's back, but even if Jarvis Landry's out again, they have some talented tight ends. So I think they can take advantage over the middle of the field and try to move the ball that way. Plus, as I said, Felton, I think, could have a good game. So, I like I said, this game is so difficult to handicap at the moment, but it sounds like we're going to be on different sides. But then again, we could be on the same side if Mayfield plays and if they're missing both tackles. So it's way too early to say, even though this game's in about 48 hours. Let's get to the next game. I like this one a lot more. Bengals at the Ravens. This line opened up Ravens -7. It's down to 6. Looks like there's sharp money coming in on Cincinnati. So are you with the sharps in this game?
I am with the sharps on this one. I like Cincinnati in this one quite a bit. They match up pretty well with Baltimore. That has not been the case in the past. In fact, Lamar Jackson has made 5 starts against Cincinnati. He's won all 5 of them, and the last 3 of them, I think, have just been complete blowouts. So they just have dominated the Bengals before. And I think the Bengals are going to remember that. We've seen this trend kind of arise this year where there's teams that have kind of repeatedly beaten up on this team. And Baltimore is actually one of them. They they beat Kansas City this year for the first time after Kansas City seemed to have their number for a long time. So I think the Bengals are going to be very motivated to try to beat Lamar Jackson and company in this one. And the other thing about the Bengals that just I have trouble believing that they should be a 6-point underdog in this game. They've played every game close this year. They've had 2 losses, both of which have been by 3 points exactly. And then they've had 2 wins by exactly 3 points. And then they've had 2 other wins that were blowouts. They won by 10 or 14 in one and 23 in the other. So I know this isn't exactly the greatest way to go about making a point, but they would have covered a 6-point spread as an underdog every single one of those games. So I think that they can do it. They're just a team that plays well and keeps things close, and they have a passing attack that can challenge Baltimore's defense. And, you know, their offensive line, I was worried about coming into the year, but they're blocking well enough for Burrow and Joe Mixon that I think we can trust them in this matchup. And then the one other thing, Joe Burrow has been very good against the blitz this year. He's completing 72.3% of his passes for 493 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's good for a passer rating of 136.8. Don Martindale, or Wink Martindale, the Ravens defensive coordinator, really likes blitzing. They've blitzed the 5th most of any team in the league, 32%. So they're not going to be able to do that against Burrow with success. If they don't make adjustments, it's going to be very easy for Cincinnati to move the ball on them. And I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense are still going to be able to move the ball on the Cincinnati defense, but they're significantly better than they once were. Like, they at least have some players that can pressure Jackson, some guys that can cover. And the problem in the past was Jackson as a runner would gash them. I think he's averaged something like 60 some odd yards against them on the ground in his 5 starts. But I think he'll be a little bit slowed down comparatively because the Bengals defense has improved. So I like the Bengals for probably 2 or 3 units here. I just think that Burrow and Zach Taylor and the Bengals are going to be motivated for this one.
Yeah, I think so too. The Ravens just had a big statement win over the Chargers. It was a blowout, and it's funny how opinions can change super quickly. A week ago, all I was saying was that, the Ravens could be 1-4 right now. They almost lost to the Lions. They were down 22-3 against the Colts. And then after that win against the Chargers, now everyone loves them. They think Lamar Jackson should be, one of the MVP candidates, which is legit. I mean, Jackson's been great this year, but still, it's such a drastic change over what people thought 7 days ago. And I think that, like this spread is kind of an overreaction to it. I think this line should be closer to like 3, maybe 3.5 or 4. So I think we're getting good value with the Bengals. The Bengals have had issues, as you said. They never beat Jackson. A big part of that has been their linebacking core, which has been awful, but it's better now. That Logan Wilson's a pretty good player, so he should be able to slow down Jackson in the running game. And the Bengals have some issues in the secondary, so I think Jackson could throw well. But like you said, Joe Burrow should do well also. I mean, that passer rating that you mentioned is 2nd in the NFL against the blitz, which is like pretty remarkable. So with all that in mind, I like the Bengals here. I think this is a huge game for them. Like you said, they never beat Jackson, whereas Baltimore is coming off a big statement win over another 4-1 team. So yeah, I think this is it's a good spot for the Bengals. I think going outright. At the very least, they should keep it close. Like I think this is probably going to be like a 3-point game. So I like Cincinnati quite a bit.
Yeah, 3-point game would match Cincinnati's trend of having 4 games decided by exactly 3 points. So I'm all for that. And one other thing, like I switched my pick to the Ravens last week. I was originally on the Chargers. Like, the Chargers did not look good, but they had come off like some pretty big wins in recent weeks. And like, I think they were starting to get kind of elevated and inflated as how good they are, but they still have some issues. Like, they're not very good against the run right now. They're just not big on defense. But they were missing 2 linebackers, Drew Tranquill, who's their fastest guy, and Kenneth Murray, who's a former first-round pick. So they were bound to have trouble containing Lamar Jackson and those running backs because they were just operating so shorthanded. The Bengals aren't nearly as shorthanded as the Chargers were on that side of the ball.
Yeah, great call by you on the Charger linebackers. We had them in the super contest for that reason. I probably should have taken them myself instead of that stupid Houston pick, but it was a good call. And here's something that I was talking about before, like Richard saying the Ravens are getting better and better at one step in front of that. So it was only 8 days ago that the Ravens were down 22-3 against the Colts on Monday night. I mean, they had a great win against the Chargers a couple days ago, but it's just a bad matchup for the Chargers. Like, 1, because of the linebackers they're missing, and 2, because Justin Herbert's bad against the blitz. Joe Burrow is great against the blitz, as you said. So it's a different sort of matchup, and I think there's an overreaction to the spread. So I like Cincinnati a lot. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, next pick is Panthers at the Giants. Line open up Panthers -3. It's still -3. I should say that there was some news a couple hours ago. Andrew Thomas was put on injured reserve. And there was also news that Kadarius Toney is probably going to miss this game. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
bummed out about Tony. I picked him up in fantasy without using a waiver claim on him a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
not happy to hear that. I have the Panthers penciled in here. I don't know what my unit count's going to be. Currently have a 0 next to it just because it's kind of hard to like either of these teams a ton right now, at least from a quarterback perspective. Like Sam Darnold as a 3-point road favorite isn't enticing. But then again, Daniel Jones down 3 of his top 4 receivers, or at least 2 of his top 4 receivers, and Saquon Barkley in all likelihood. That's not exactly something I want to bet on. And, last week, I think that the Panthers' result against the Vikings was a little bit skewed. Like, Sam Darnold was horrible in that game, but they were still in it late. He led like one drive of destiny that like everyone was like, there's no way he's going to lead a 90-some-odd yard drive with how he's looking. Right. And then all of a sudden he did, and it was like, what the heck? Where'd that come from? I know they got a blocked punt touchdown, I think, but their defense played very well until late in the game. Then they got tired because Sam Darnold kept putting them in bad positions. I think if Darnold can avoid turnovers, they're going to be better off against the Giants here. They're going to be able to move the ball and not turn the ball over. The defense won't get as tired. So I'm going to be on the Panthers -3. I don't like this game much. I'm probably not going to end up betting it unless you have a strong opinion that can sway me here. I'm tentatively on the Panthers.
So I was on the Giants before that news came out, and now I'm going to switch to the Panthers. As I actually wrote on the site, it was contingent on Kadarius Toney or Kenny Golladay playing, and now we know Tony's going to be out. We don't know about Golladay yet, but I didn't even factor in Andrew Thomas. Like I just assumed he would play. I know he was banged up heading into Week 6, but now he's on injured reserve, and that's going to make the Giants blocking a lot worse because he's been their best offensive lineman, and the Panthers have a great edge rush, so this is really going to hurt the Giants. The Panthers have been kind of a funny team. They started 3-0 and they've been hyped up and they've lost 3 in a row. But if you look at their losses, they were winning at halftime against Dallas and they collapsed in the second half. Then against the Eagles, they were winning by 9 and they had some misfortune in the second half again. And then last week they dropped 9 passes, which is unbelievable. Like Robbie Anderson dropped 4 passes in that game. DJ Moore dropped 3 passes. Chuba Hubbard dropped 2. Now maybe Robbie Anderson continues to have problems, but I would not expect DJ Moore to have those issues. So with better luck, I think the Panthers should be able to take care of business considering the Giants are so shorthanded. So unless the Giants get like a miracle news where Saquon Barkley and Kenny Golladay come back, I'm probably going to be on the Panthers.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think if Kadarius Toney was playing, I would like the Giants more because I'd be more confident they could move the ball. We've seen teams without like their top receiving weapons just struggle to move the ball. And I think you can make a case, and this is in an extremely small sample size, that Toney might be the best receiver on the Giants. He's just an electric playmaker, if above all else. So I mean, if he had been able to stay on the field against the Rams, that game probably doesn't turn into an enormous blowout because he was on the field for their only scoring drive of the first basically entire game until garbage time. So, yeah, I think barring some miracle injury news, I think that's going to be the case. And when have we ever gotten miracle injury news about Kenny Golladay? It's always like, all right, he's due back this week, 7 weeks later. Why is Kenny Golladay still out?
Yeah, it's gonna be Thanksgiving. We're gonna be like, maybe Golladay plays this week. Yeah, it's a good point. Tony played 6 snaps against last week, and he caught 3 passes in those 6 snaps. It's unbelievable. He gets so much separation. It's unreal. Like he might end up being the best receiver in this class, which is saying a lot because Jamar Chase has been ridiculous so far, but Tony has been so electric. Just really looking forward to seeing him play, but unfortunately, we can't this week. But let's move on to the next game, Redskins at the Packers. This line opened up Packers -10. It's down to 9.5. Looks like there's some sharp action on Washington. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm with the Sharps again on this one. I mean, I don't love Washington. Like everything I wrote on my notes page was like, all right, I don't like Washington here. They just scored 13 points against the Chiefs defense. They have Taylor Heineke playing quarterback, and Heineke's had some good moments in his career, or at least in the last year, but he hasn't looked good enough to compete and go blow for blow with Aaron Rodgers. And Washington's O-line's banged up, and so is Antonio Gibson. And then I get down to the Packers side of things. And I look at their schedule, and they're playing the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football this upcoming week. And that to me is just the ultimate look ahead opportunity for the Packers because they're 5-1. I think you and I both think that they're a little bit overhyped. They've played some games a lot closer than it's looked in the end. So, a lot of me wanted to be anti-Packers in this one, despite the matchup. I think so I'm going to be ending up on Washington because I think the Packers are a little bit worse than they're letting on record-wise, at least. And they're going to be looking ahead to that Cardinals matchup because that's going to be a true litmus test for them to be like, all right, are we contenders this year? Have we done enough around Aaron Rodgers to turn this team into a contender? And they're, down Jair Alexander, unfortunately, for that one. So they're going to have to just make sure they're well rested and prepared for that. So I just think the Packers could come out distracted. So where we're getting more than a touchdown and nearly 10 points, I like Washington having the possibility of covering here. I'm not going to bet heavily on Washington, though. I'm not into betting bad quarterbacks, given how many times I've been wrong about Davis Mills this year. But I'm gonna be on Washington for 0 to 2 units is what I have written down now. It depends a little bit on how their offensive line is.
Yeah, I like them more than you do. Yeah, the offensive line is an issue, so we'll see about that. But the Packers have problems at cornerback with Jair Alexander out. Kevin King's banged up as well. So it feels like the Redskins should be able to throw on them, even though it's Taylor Heineke. Although I saw that there's a chance that Ryan Fitzpatrick could return for this game, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I mean, this line is I think is way too high. The advanced spread on this game was -7.5, and it moved 2.5 points. Now 2 points. I don't think it should have moved that far. The Packers, they had a 10-point win at Chicago. That was like Aaron Rodgers was so hyped up for that game. Like you saw him cheering on the sidelines for his defense. Like sometimes he's checked out, like we saw in week 1 against New Orleans. I feel like it could be one of those games for the reason you said, that this might be a look ahead for the Packers. So I think the Redskins are in a better spot. I know they're 1-5 against the spread this year. It's just been a complete money pit, but it seems like the spread is like finally like where it should be. Because remember, they were favored against the Chargers at home in week 1, which is kind of like absurd. And like they've kind of played better recently. I think even though they lost by 18 against the Chiefs, it seems like they got better pressure on Patrick Mahomes than I thought they would. And even against the Saints, they lost by 11, but really it was 4 because Jameis Winston hit a Hail Mary right before halftime. So that was a close game too. So I think they should be able to keep this game close, especially if their defense is going to be playing better. And if the Packers are going to be as distracted as we both think they are. So depending on the injuries, this could be as high as 4 units for me. It's probably going to be 2 or 3, but it could be 4.
Yeah, I'll probably end up betting on this game now that you're confident in it because all I need is just a little push and being like, all right, yeah, I'm in on this. Yeah, it like you said, the spread's too high. It shouldn't have moved based off last week's results. Like Washington played Kansas City tight in the first half. It just, got away from them because they're playing Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Heineke is a backup quarterback, even against a bad defense. So yeah, I definitely like Washington over the Packers. I will be interested to see what the Packers offensive line looks like. I know they're getting close to, if they haven't already, activated David Bakhtiari. So when he's back and Elton Jenkins is back, almost got it that time. They'll have a pretty good offensive line all of a sudden, especially on that left side. That's going to look strong. So hopefully they'll be back healthy soon, and then we can be a little more confident in the Packers. Maybe if we're lucky, the Washington will cover here. Green Bay will lose to Arizona on Thursday night, and then those 2 offensive linemen will be back. We'll be able to get a good value on them.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be nice, especially if they lose this game and lose the Arizona game. They'll be 5-3, and suddenly people will be down on them. That's good thinking because right now they're a little overrated. They've only won 1 game this year by 10 points. And that was against Detroit, and they were losing to Detroit at halftime in that game. So yeah, and there's 2 10-point wins they had. One was against Chicago last week, and the other one was against Pittsburgh at home. So not exactly like, wins over great teams or anything, So I feel like Washington should be able to keep this game close. So we're talking about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are at the Titans. The line opened up Chiefs -4.5. There was some sharp movement to 5.5, like suddenly in the afternoon. I was kind of wondering what that was about, and I think it's because Chris Jones was announced as probably going to be playing in this game. So that's what the line movement was. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Chiefs in this one. I think the Titans are going to come into this one banged up and off of an emotional Monday night win, short rest. That's going to be tough for them to come back from. We don't know the status of Taylor Lewan. He was carted off last night. Thankfully, I believe he was moving everything, but it's always scary when that stuff happens. And you could tell it affected both the Titans and the Bills players. Julio Jones went out with a hamstring injury too, so you're talking one of your top two receivers is out. AJ Brown has not been fully healthy, be it from a hamstring injury or bad Chipotle that he ate 48 hours before the game, which is legitimately what he said was his illness was food poisoning from Chipotle. So the more you know, that's what happened with AJ Brown, guys. And I just think that with the Titans coming off the short week, being banged up, it's going to be really hard for them to get up and beat Kansas City. And, the Chiefs still need to keep winning. Like they're moving up the totem pole, but they're still tied for last place in the AFC West, and they could potentially be in last place alone if Denver beats Cleveland on Thursday night. So that Andy Reid's gonna be like, "Hey guys, we won it easy against a not great team last week. Now we're playing a better team, and if we don't, we're gonna be stuck in last place here." So I think this game just favors the Chiefs, and the Titans also have a look ahead factor to this because they're playing the Colts the week after. And the Titans are ahead in their divisional race, and the Colts are kind of gaining a little bit, but they're the only legitimate potential threat there. So they might look at that and be like, hey, if we win that, we're going to have a potential 2 or 3 or 4 game lead over the Colts at that point. So if they get in their own head about that, I could see them just being distracted about that. So I'm going to be on the Chiefs here as long as this stays under 6. Especially if they're getting Chris Jones back, that should help their defense. I've got 1 unit written down here too. I could maybe go up to 2 unless you like the Titans. You've been better at figuring out their emotional edges than I have been.
I don't like the Titans. I feel like what you said is completely accurate. Where they kind of got the Bills on a kind of a letdown spot after beating the Chiefs. I mean that was Buffalo's Super Bowl really until the playoffs at least because they watched that ceremony after the AFC Championship, like Stephon Diggs was talking about. That game meant so much to them, and they won it in a blowout. Like they felt great about themselves, and they didn't really bring their A effort. I feel like against Tennessee, like they made a lot of mistakes. I don't think the Chiefs are going to make those mistakes. They're 3-3, like you said. They can't afford to go to 3-4 with so many teams ahead of them in the division. So I think they're going to be playing tough in this game. Tennessee, like you said, coming off short rest and the Indianapolis game next, like it feels like they have bigger fish to fry because if they beat the Colts next week, they basically lock up the division. Like no one else is going to catch them. So yeah, I'm with you on the Chiefs. Chris Jones being back is huge. Not a surprise that the line moved 1 point because of that. I mean, he's such a great player. He's going to help them against the run, which is looks like a horrible matchup because Derrick Henry should be able to theoretically trample all over their defense. But with Chris Jones back, it's not going to be as bad. And I think the Chiefs played better defensively. I thought last week, even though they're going against Taylor Heineke, they still slowed down Antonio Gibson a little bit. So they should be able to have a little bit of success against Henry. Not a lot. I still expect them to play well, but still, I think the Chiefs should be able to win this game by about a touchdown. I'm not going to bet this game just because we lost all line value. The advanced spread on this game was Kansas City -3. So it moved the 1.5, and then it moved another point from the sharp movement. But I think that spread was wrong to begin with. I think this spread is about right where it should be. But still, we're not getting any line value. If this is still -3, I would definitely be betting the Chiefs a lot, but not so much at -5.5.
Yeah, I think the 1 unit's probably a good call on my part because I like it enough. I think they should win by a touchdown. I think Henry's going to have a good game. Like you said, I think Chris Jones will slow him down a bit. I think the Antonio Gibson slowdown's a little misleading because he is very banged up. But I think even if Henry goes off and has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, which he is doing in his sleep right now, I still think that, Kansas City passing attack can do enough here. And they're starting Juan Thornhill on defense instead of Daniel Sorensen, and that really helped them against Washington because Sorensen has just been awful in coverage this year. He's much better in a sub role where he can focus on making plays near the line of scrimmage and not getting beaten deep.
Yeah, he's been terrible, so it's definitely a good move on their part. We had a few questions. Chiefs Titans over under is 56. Bet the over question mark from G Chuck. I'm not a good totals better. I've been trying totals since for like 15 years, and I'm like almost 500. Like it's just flip a coin for me. I would take the over though. The line is or I should say the total's high. But that just tells me the sports books don't want people to bet the total over. So I would bet the over, but that's just a guess. What do you think?
I got burned on the Chiefs Washington over last week. So part of me wants to take the under, but I think that Tennessee should be better on offense. I think all you have to ask yourself in this one is what type of game is this going to be? Can the Chiefs score 30? Will they score 30? I think that they score more than 30, so I would take the over here as well. I started the year like incredibly hot with over unders, and I have since just come crashing down. So I'll give the tentative over a head nod here as well.
Yeah, I could never figure those out, but I never really had an incentive to. Like, I'd rather just figure out who's going to win the games. I feel like that's more interesting. We had a question here from Joe Johnson. If the Titans make the playoffs, do you think they'd ever give an MVP to a running back? Henry is a beast. I mean, running backs have won MVP before, so it could happen, but it's usually in a year where there isn't like a defining quarterback. This year we have Kyler Murray, we have Tom Brady, we have Josh Allen, we have Lamar Jackson, even Justin Herbert if the Chargers get back on track. Like, there's so many good quarterback MVP options. I don't think Henry wins MVP. Then again, if the Titans like reel off a ton of wins in a row and they finish like 13-4, 14-3, I could see Henry winning MVP, but I think they give it to Murray and the other quarterbacks before him.
Yeah, I'm inherently biased because I bet Derrick Henry to win MVP. I bet three players to win MVP. One was Kyler Murray, one was Derrick Henry, and one was Jameis Winston. Two of them look like good bets right now. Jameis Winston was a super long shot, guys. It was like 100-1 or something. But I think you have to consider Derrick Henry, especially if he continues on a crash course for the NFL rushing record and say he blows it out of the water. Like, I get there's an extra game in the season, so like if he beats the record, it'll be impressive, but people will also be like, would he have done it in a 16-game season? If he blows it out of the water, that'll be like his third straight year leading the league in carries, yards, and rushing touchdowns. Then you kind of have to look at it like, if the Titans are a good team, you have to be like, oh man, that's pretty impressive. But, if Kyler Murray keeps playing well, like you said, there are a lot of quarterbacks. I almost think that what might happen is if there are a lot of good quarterback candidates and then Henry like has this absurd season, they might just be like, all right, we'll give it to Henry so no one can complain that we chose like about which quarterback we chose. But then again, they might like the controversy because it'll stir up some off-season headlines.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I could see that. I really wish with this expanded regular season that the NFL would have been like, all right, we're going to cut off all stat tracking after week 17 and not go in the week 18 just to preserve all the records. I think I would have liked to have seen that, but I don't know. That's just me. I like we're going to see so many records broken. It just kind of sucks, And one more, Richard says, Gibson's the reason I'm not thinking Washington. He is not right. So Gibson's banged up, like you said. But even if he misses this game, I still like Washington because I like J.D. McKissick a lot. Plus, Jarrett Patterson has shown well in the preseason. But I feel like McKissick could have like an Austin Eckler type of game. And we expect the Packers to be trailing in this game. So McKissick's going to be on the field anyway. So I like Washington regardless of Gibson's status.
Yeah, I agree. Running backs usually, like, Gibson's a talented player, but in terms of covering the spread, they don't matter as much if you have a quality backup. McKissick is that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next game, the Falcons coming off their bye at the Dolphins. This line open up, pick 'em. It's up to the Falcons -2.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to imagine we're on opposite sides here because I'm on the Falcons. I don't love the idea of betting a line that's moved that much. But this feels like a really bad spot for the Dolphins for me because they're coming home from London off a loss. And I don't know if they're going to be deflated by that, but I can imagine them being tired a little bit from jet lag or something along those lines. And meanwhile, the Falcons are coming off of a bye week. They're fresh. They're getting Calvin Ridley back. He missed their London game with personal issues. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why the Dolphins are not on bye after a London game. It makes no sense to me. And I'm a little worried about how tired they might be in wake of this game. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, But I look at the Falcons too, and this is like a trend that's been the case for the last 5 years since 2016. They're 10-5 against the spread when operating with any sort of rest advantage. So that's a cover percent of 66.7. It's the third best in the NFL. And I know they're under new leadership. Arthur Smith's a new coach. They're a different team than they were even 5 years ago. But the quarterback remains the same. That's what I care about right now. It's Matt Ryan. So I think he'll be ready after some extra rest to come out and beat the Dolphins here. But I think the Dolphins were scheduled to be or set to be like a 2.5 point favorite. So the fact that the line has moved 5 points is kind of worrying to me. So I'm not going to bet on this one heavily. If anything, I'm going to go 1 unit probably on the Falcons. This game isn't one that I really want to be involved in, though, because I don't think either of these teams are good. But, you could probably make a case for the Dolphins, which is, I'm assuming, what you're going to do because of the massive line movement. But yeah, let's hear your case out because I'm pretty lukewarm. I'm just penciling in the Dolphins, not the Dolphins, Falcons right now.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how'd you know I like the Dolphins? And then I kind of remembered that I like betting the advanced line moves. Yeah, the advanced spread on this game is Miami -2.5. And now it's Falcons -2.5. It moved 5 points. Granted, not between any key numbers or anything, but it's close to 3. And I think we might be able to get a +3 by kickoff. We'll see if that's the case in the Super Contest. Probably not. Yeah, I like Miami quite a bit. Like we had Miami last week. I planned on betting Miami, and we had Miami in our shared Super Contest entry. And then we got some surprising news, or at least what I thought was surprising news. Like we thought we knew Xavier Howard was going to be out and Devontae Parker, but then Byron Jones got ruled out too. And it was like I woke up, I think like 9:10 or 9:15 a.m. and I saw the news and like, oh my God. So I decided not to bet the game, but it was like kind of too late to change my side. Like I would have chosen Jacksonville had I known that ahead of time. Just because, Miami without its top 2 cornerbacks against a good Jacksonville receiving core was going to be trouble. And Trevor Lawrence played well. Tua played well too, but he made a couple of mistakes. But overall, I thought he had a good game considering that he was down his top 2 receivers. Jalen Waddle had a breakout game too. So, I mean, that came down to the wire. But still, if Miami gets his players back, and I think there's a chance, like none of these guys are on IR. Like if Parker comes back and if one of their 2 cornerbacks return, they're going to be a completely different team. And like I feel like at that point you can disregard what we saw in London because I think if they had them, they would have won the game. And also, like another reason why this line moves so much is because the Falcons, the last time we saw them, they dominated the Jets. Like they only won by 7, but they crushed the Jets. The Jets had some scores late in the game to make it close. But like people are so quick to forget what happened to the Falcons before that. Like they lost to the Redskins at home the week before they played the Jets. Before that, they barely beat the Giants. Like they were down for most of the game and at least in the second half, and they won at the end with a final drive. Daniel Jones almost won the game. Like he had the ball at midfield and he took a bad sack, and then the Falcons drove down the field to win the game by 3. This Atlanta team is garbage. Like they don't deserve to be favored on the road against anyone except for maybe Houston and Detroit. Miami, if it gets its players back, it's gonna be a lot better. And I think with this line value, I love the Dolphins. They're except for maybe the Bengals, they're my favorite play in the early afternoon slate. So yeah, I'm gonna be on Miami for quite a bit, depending on the injuries, I should say.
Yeah, your case is a lot stronger than mine. I will admit that. I just still can't believe that they're coming back from London. So one of the commenters said Miami chose not to have a bye week.
Real fast. I saw that from Armando Salguero. He said that the Dolphins had the option to choose a bye after London, and they chose not to.
That is a terrible decision. Like I don't know why you would do that. Like I don't know. Especially maybe they wanted one later in the season, but I don't know. Like they're 1-5 now, so it doesn't like it would have been nice for them to have a bye and be rested. But yeah, I mean, if the Dolphins have Devontae Parker and both of their defensive backs back, I probably won't bet this game because I will be very afraid of Miami. But I'm gonna stick with Atlanta right now. I know they're overrated, especially in the public eye. Like the public sees their offensive players and are like, "Oh, Atlanta's still good," but their defense isn't as good as people think it is, or as it was during their Super Bowl campaign. And then, Matt Ryan's not the same player he once was, but I still think that he'll have a chance. But we'll see what the injury report brings. But I encourage anyone watching this to listen to Walt and not me on this one, because I've been very wrong about the Dolphins for most of the year.
Well, I should say that if they're down both cornerbacks again, I'll probably switch to Atlanta. I may not bet the game, but I'll switch to Atlanta. The travel factor doesn't really bother me. It's not like they're on the Oregon Trail or anything. Like they just
Right.
traveled. Like what's London? What's London to Miami? Like 5 hour flight, 6 hour flight. Like it's not like too bad. I've flown to Vegas and back. Like I feel like if I were a football player, I was about to say I could have played a football game, but not really because I'm not a football player. But if I were, I probably could have played that game. So I don't think it's that bad of an issue. I still like Atlanta. So Miami should say. So let's get to the last game in the early slate. The Jets are at the Patriots. This line opened up Patriots -7. It's remained at 7. I think this is one of the most confusing spreads this week. So I'm curious to hear who you have in this game.
I'm interested to see why you're confused about it, because I was confused about it too. Because I looked back at the Patriots Jets spread from earlier in the season.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The Patriots were 5.5-point road favorites against the Jets, and now they're only favored by 7 at home. Like, I get it. I get it. They haven't like won as many games as we're accustomed to seeing for the Patriots, but they've been in most of them. They almost beat the Buccaneers, if Nick Folk's field goal doesn't tail off at the end. I mean, Brady has a drive to potentially win that game, but that they could have won that game. They could have beat the Dolphins if Damian Harris didn't fumble. They could have beat the Cowboys if Mike McCarthy had been much worse with his clock management, or if Bill Belichick had been more aggressive with Mac Jones in overtime, or if they had called the blatant missed face mask in overtime that would have put the Patriots at least in field goal range. That bothered me a lot. But anyway. Bill Belichick has dominated rookie quarterbacks. Now he's just a favorite of 7 at home. Doesn't make any sense to me. I know that they struggled against Davis Mills, but last time they played Zach Wilson, they held the Jets to 6 points, and he turned the ball over 4 times via interceptions. I know the Patriots defensive backs haven't looked as good in recent weeks, but I think they're going to be ready for this one. I would imagine they win this game. They're getting to desperation mode now. Belichick knows they need a win to stay in any sort of wild card hunt here. So I like the Patriots quite a bit here. I've got 1 to 2 units down on them right now, leaning towards 2. I think they could win this game like 24-6 or something. So I don't know why this spread's only 7.
It's so shady, isn't it? Like the closing line in week 2, you mentioned 5.5, but it closed at 6, and like now it's 7 here. Like despite the location change, like I get that the Jets are off a bye, so like maybe that factored into it, but still, like it shouldn't affect it that much. I expected something closer to like 10. Before I looked at the lines, I kind of project my own line, and I thought this would be like -9.5, something like that. And it's only -7, and the computer model has a -12, so that's even more egregious. This is just screaming like trap game. I feel like because 90% of the money is on New England, and like it's such a low line. So like either Vegas screwed up, which I doubt, or like the sportsbooks know something. And I feel like maybe the thing they know is that the Patriots already dominated the Jets. They're coming off an emotional loss to the Cowboys. And considering that they destroyed this team already, they may not have the incentive to do that again. That's my guess. But Belichick I feel like, is going to dominate a rookie quarterback once again. Like you said, he tends to do that, except for against Davis Mills, apparently. But he should be able to force Zach Wilson into more turnovers. Plus, Belichick's great at erasing one aspect of an offense. And I feel like Corey Davis, who caught 2 passes for 8 yards in the first matchup, like I feel like he's not going to be a factor. Now, maybe Jamison Crowder being available, he wasn't available in week 2. Like maybe that makes a difference. But still, I don't think it's going to be enough. So I would take the Patriots. I'm not going to bet this game just because there's so much action on the Patriots at the slow line. It just seems so weird to me. Plus, I don't know if we're going to get New England's A+ effort, like probably from some players, but I don't think collectively they're going to have an A+ effort.
Yeah, I think if their record was better coming into this game, I could buy that argument. I am a little scared by the trap line. Vegas always knows more than we do, more than we let on. And maybe Robert Saleh has like a great game plan coming out of the bye, and they're going to come out, hit the Patriots in the mouth, and then, Belichick and the Patriots are going to have to scramble to get back into it, like what happened against Houston the other day. But I just can't shake that Belichick against rookie quarterbacks and just how bad Zach Wilson has looked for the entire season. Like if he magically got better during the bye, I'd be shocked, frankly. Like maybe he'll look a little bit better, but he was like skipping passes to his receivers in London. He was just throwing balloons to the Patriots defense. So every time I've watched him, I've literally just been sitting there going, oh my God. Like I've been just livid watching him. So I'm going to be on the Patriots here. I'm going to bet this game, and we'll see if Vegas knows more than I do. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, he's been terrible, and yet he beat the Titans a couple weeks ago. It's just so weird. I think it was RJ White who works for CBS. He tweeted, he's like, when you're doing your power rankings, consider that the Titans lost to the Jets and beat the Bills, and then start from there. It's like, it's just like I know the Titans were missing their top two receivers, but it still feels like they shouldn't have lost to the Jets. So who knows? I mean, if the Jets could beat the team that beat the Bills, maybe they could beat the Patriots or at least cover the spread. I feel like something shady is going to happen in this game. I just don't want any part of it. So let's move on. There are 4 late afternoon games. The first one, I would just say 3 of them have colossal point spread. So this could be a very uninteresting late afternoon slate. The first one is Lions at the Rams. This line opened up Rams minus 15.5. It's down to 15. So some value there on the Rams if you want it. This is a double revenge game. Matthew Stafford obviously used to play for the Lions. Jared Goff used to play for the Rams. So we'll see who gets the better of one another. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I, full disclosure, hate point spreads this high. So I'm probably not going to bet this game. But I have the Rams penciled in. Like I don't love the number, but this is where I'm coming from here. So as you mentioned, double revenge game, but which side's going to have more motivation to succeed in this one? You've got Matthew Stafford on a revenge game against his former team, and a defense that's going to want to prove that Jared Goff wasn't the reason for the Rams' success when they went to the Super Bowl. That Rams defense that year didn't get nearly as much love as it should have because a lot of attention was paid to Jared Goff of the offense. So I think that's going to motivate the Rams, especially. Then on the Lions side of things, they're going to want to help Jared Goff look good and bounce back off of a tough loss. But Dan Campbell, this is like one of the first like true mistakes he's made, like when addressing his team. He kind of undercut Jared Goff in the wake of his last performance. Like he was terrible against Vikings. Or who did they play last week? Did they play the Vikings? Bengals. Thank you. I was flashing back to another week. But he was terrible against the Bengals. Like he threw a ball out of bounds on 4th down at one point. It was like, what are you doing, man? And then Dan Campbell after the game was like, he's going to have to play a lot better. And basically was kind of like did not give him a vote of confidence. Wasn't like he's gonna play better in the future. So I just worry about that from like the team perspective or Goff's perspective of what if the team all of a sudden starts viewing like Jared Goff can't get it done, the coach said as much. Like that worries me enough that I'm gonna be like I don't want to bet on him in this game. And the Lions just don't have a ton of talent right now. So I think there might be a little bit of waning confidence in Goff. So maybe he looks good, but I don't want to trust him here. So I'm going to pencil in the Rams here. I know that the Lions have played hard on occasion and they've kept games close. So I could easily see this cover hitting because it's by more than 2 touchdowns. But it's just so hard to figure out when they're going to show up. And I would be absolutely stunned if Matthew Stafford doesn't put forth one of his best performances of the year in this one.
Yeah, I would too. And I think the question is whether the Lions will get a backdoor cover, kind of like they did against San Francisco. The spread's so high. I mean, that could definitely happen. There could be a situation where the Rams are up by 21 in the 4th quarter, and then the Lions get a touchdown to lose by 14. And it kind of feels bad when you lay the 15. It just I don't like these large spreads either, unless there's something like really, convincing on either side. And I don't think there is here. Like you asked which team's going to have more motivation. I would say it's the underdog. Like I get I get the Rams perspective, like Jared Goff got a ton of acclaim for going to the Super Bowl, but I feel like a lot of the Rams players still like him. He's not like, he's not like a bad guy or anything. Like they still probably like him. Sean McVay, like he had, a relationship with him, although he could probably know his weaknesses and kind of help the defense scheme toward him. So that's a factor as well. So it's kind of like why I'm scared I would be scared to bet the Lions if I were considering it. But I just think that the Rams aren't going to be fully motivated to demolish their former quarterback. They just crushed the Giants. That was off extra rest. And so given that they just had a huge win, I just don't know if they're going to have the motivation to really mop the floor with Detroit. And remember, Detroit just had an embarrassing loss to Cincinnati, but before that, they kept games close. Like they almost beat the Ravens. They almost beat the Vikings. So they've kept some games close. I feel like this could maybe be a close game, and if anything, the Lions get a backdoor cover. So I'm not going to bet this game.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet it either. I'm just sticking on the Rams because I just have this feeling about Stafford. Like, I think because so many people questioned him, like outside the Lions organization, just like fans and media people who were always like, oh, but like they don't win in Detroit, so he's not really good. And now it's like, he's not quite an MVP candidate, or maybe he is. I don't know. Depends on how you view it. He's not a top tier MVP candidate right now, but he's playing very, very well is the point. So I think he's going to want to just show people like, no, Detroit was the problem. They never surrounded me with enough talent or never built talented defense. But, I've been wrong about stuff before. Dan Campbell's had the Lions play hard. And I hate spreads this high. It's not fun. You're just like, all right, you need to score now. And then if the Lions score first, you're like, all right, well, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. You have to this is sometimes something I've said to people before, like when they're frustrated, like a big spread doesn't cover. I'm like, you have to remember, like the Rams aren't trying to win this game by more than 15. Like they're just trying to win this game. So like in the fourth quarter, if they're up by 20, 23, even like they could pull their starters and the Lions could get 10 points and cover the spread. Like that could easily happen. Chris saying McVay knows Goff inside out, which I agree. Campbell doesn't know Stafford. Rams will easily cover. I don't fear the backdoor cover here. Well, you're braver than me. I feel like, when you have spreads this high, like anything can happen, like a fumble return for a touchdown, special teams touchdown. If the Rams have a bunch of drives that last a long time and they stall in the red zone a few times, like those are field goals instead of touchdowns, and then they don't cover. So I feel like something has to be completely lopsided for that to happen. And as I said before, the Lions have kept most of their games close. Just want to run down their schedule. So in week 1, they cover against the Niners with the backdoor cover. Week 2, they lost by 18 against the Packers, but they were up at halftime. So that game was closer than the final score says. They would have beaten the Ravens if it wasn't for that Justin Tucker kick. They lost to the Bears by 10. So close game. And then they lost to the Vikings by 2. And then obviously they got crushed by the Bengals. So I feel like that Bengals game is throwing everything off. I think if it wasn't for that, this line would be like 13 or so. It just feels like everyone saw the Lions get destroyed and now they think it's going to happen again. And it could. I just think that I think it's more likely the Lions hang around. But again, I'm not betting this game.
Yeah, one last point. I think the Rams play the Texans after this one, so there's no look ahead potential in case anyone was wondering about that. That's why I kind of like the Rams in this one. Like they're going to pick one game to focus on. I think it would be this one, not the Texans.
Well, it's another revenge game because they get to go against Brandon Cooks. So maybe they are looking ahead to that. Probably not. Richard says, is there a stat line for double revenge games? I can't remember a double revenge quarterback game like from the year prior. Like maybe it's happened where a quarterback played for a team like 6 years ago or something. But like maybe I can't think of one.
Yeah, I really can't think of one off the top of my head. This is a rare circumstance. That's what happens when you get this much quarterback movement in an offseason. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's you never see quarterbacks traded for each other. It's just so this just never happens. All right, next game, Eagles at the Raiders. This is the only game in the late afternoon slate without a monstrous point spread. This line opened up Raiders -3. It's remained at 3. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, last week with the replacement of Gruden with Rich Bisaccia, I thought that the Raiders would come to play in that one, and they did. So that ended up panning out. This one, I don't know what to make of this game. I don't know how they're going to do. We've seen the Raiders play well at times this year, but then we've also seen them just kind of lay an egg against the Chargers. They also did against the Bears, but I'm going to write that one off a little because there was the drama with Gruden in the background there. But this game, this is one of the worst logics I'm going to use for a pick in this entire thing. I don't think that the Raiders should be 5-2. So I'm going to side with the Eagles at +3. I'm not betting this one. I just think that, I don't know. I can't imagine them being 5-2. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but with the way their offensive line is, I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I know the Eagles defense is no great shakes, but they've they've played some ridiculously good games at random times. I can't figure out the Eagles at all. And I have, ever since we started the show, struggled to figure out the Raiders, except for last week. So I'm going to let you take over with perhaps some more nuanced analysis here.
Yeah, I like the Eagles a lot. The Raiders had their emotional win last week. They went into Denver. They played a perfect game. Felt like they were up 17 before a late touchdown. It seems like they went all out to kind of win that game and kind of like make a statement. And now they have to come back for a non-conference game at home, against a team they barely know, against a quarterback they never played before. I think they're going to be kind of a little deflated, I think. And the advanced spread on this game was -2.5. It went up to 3. I know that's not a big movement, but still, like sportsbooks thought that the Raiders shouldn't be field goal favorites over the Eagles. And, you mentioned the Bears game. The Raiders lost to the Bears by double digits at home. And maybe you say, okay, maybe they were distracted. But the week before, they were getting blown out against the Chargers before some late scores in the second half. And before that, they almost lost to the Dolphins. It went to overtime. And at the time, we're like, okay, they beat the Dolphins. Dolphins almost beat the Patriots, or they beat the Patriots. We're like, okay, that's a good win. But we've seen the Dolphins since. And so, the Raiders, that win's not impressive either. They beat the Steelers by 9, but TJ Watt was out for most of that game. And I just feel like the Raiders are, like you said, not good enough to be 5-2. I think the Eagles could come back, win this game. 2 weeks ago, the Eagles beat the Panthers in Carolina. That spread was -3, and I feel like Carolina and the Raiders are probably about even. So I think that the Eagles are a good side here, because I just feel like the Raiders aren't going to be. I just don't see they're going to. I just don't see an A+ effort from them like we saw last week.
Yeah, I think you basically said what my brain wanted to figure out, but I couldn't figure out how to put it. Like when I was doing my research, I'm like, man, like the Raiders offense has been okay at times, but like I don't think they're going to win this game. But yeah, you bring up a bunch of great points. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think the emotional letdown happens now. The Raiders are going to regress towards being what they are supposed to be. It looks like my dad wants to know if Miles Sanders is going to have a breakout game. I'll let you take that question, because I talked to him about Miles Sanders a fair amount right now.
It seems like the Eagles don't know Sanders exists. Like I don't understand why they're not running the ball. They ran the ball once in the first half last week. The game against Dallas, they ran the ball 3 times. They just don't run the ball with Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell is getting a bunch of touches. Like he's getting the come from behind touches that Sanders should be getting. Like Gainwell is their primary receiving back, so Sanders is just not getting the touches. So I don't know. I feel like I would give up on him. I don't think he's ever going to break out. I don't know why they're not running the ball. And that kind of takes me to this other question from Chris. He says, well, what's the honest perception about the Eagles and Sirianni in Philly? So this is funny. I was having like dinner with my parents or something. It was in August. This is after a couple of preseason games, and then my dad asked, like, when are they going to fire Nick Sirianni? And like, he hasn't even played a regular season game yet. Like, I feel like that's been the perception in Philly. Like no one was very pleased with that hire, because no one really knew who he was, and now they're not running the ball at all. Like it just seems like that they have like bad game plans. They played a zone defense against Brady on Thursday night, which is like not bad decision. I don't think they're coached very well. So people don't like this Eagles regime very much.
Yeah, and I for the life of me, my coworker at Sporting News wrote about this, but the Eagles really can't quit the Andy Reid coaching tree. Like right. They fired Andy Reid, then they brought in Chip Kelly, and they were like, oh God, this is terrible. So then they hired Doug Peterson, and then they go out and hire Nick Sirianni after moving on from him. And Sirianni comes from Reich, who comes from Peterson, who comes from Reid. So it's just like all these branches, like they might need to try something new. Like why, or if they were going to try something from that tree, why not go with Matt Eberflus, who's a very good defensive mind in Indy?
Yeah, or maybe they shouldn't have fired Andy Reid in the first place.
That's probably the move.
Yeah, go back in time and not fire him. I think that could work out. Joe's asking, what do you think about Dillard's play left tackle? Like, not bad. I thought he held up pretty well. It's kind of like the reason why the Eagles weren't really blown out of the water. I guess it was 28-7 game, but still, if like the Eagles got back into it and they had the cover, and people were tilted about going for 2. Like I don't know. Like I was trying. Like I had so many emails saying like, is this a conspiracy? But like the teams have been going for 2 now a lot after they score down 14-8. And like it just makes sense mathematically, but it's not like pretty obvious to most people who like just don't know about it.
Yeah, and Sirianni comes from that new school of thinking. So as soon as they scored that touchdown, I was watching alone, so I said to myself, they're going to go for 2, and they did. It was pretty easy to figure out if you know which coaches do that. Like Brandon Staley's undoubtedly going to do that if he hasn't already. So you just have to keep in mind which coaches think that way.
Yeah, I didn't bet the game. My dad did. I watched every Thursday night game with my dad. And as the Eagles are driving down 14, I told him, I'm like, if they score a touchdown, they're going for 2. He's like, why? I'm like, they're just going to do it. And then they did it. And he's like, how'd you know? But yeah, he was not pleased about that result. All right, 2 more games in the late afternoon slate. Bears at the Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -13, down to 12.5. So it looks like a little bit of sharp money on Chicago. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like Chicago here too. The spread's just a little too high. I know the Buccaneers, they've blown out weaker competitions, but they've had some close calls and they've let teams in like for backdoor covers, like we were just talking about with the Eagles right there. Like, they were up on the Eagles by 21 and the Eagles brought it to within 7. So I think that could happen again against the Bears. I know Justin Fields looked pretty bad against the Packers. There were 3 balls that he just launched into the end zone with no purpose. Granted, one was definitely there was an offside call missed on that. And I felt bad for him there, but then there were 2 that was like, dude, what are you doing? This does not look good. So I think that he's going to have to play better, but Richard Sherman, I think, is out for this game. So the thin secondary of the Buccaneers continues to get thinner. I'm a little worried about Tom Brady and Bruce Arians with extra time. So I have like a flexible unit count on here. I'm probably going to bet this game. I've got 1 to 3 units marked down here. I just want to see how healthy the Buccaneers are. But I just think that even if they get up 14 in this one, what's going to stop Chicago from coming down the field and scoring again? Like the Buccaneers aren't going to care if it gets late enough in the game. So I think this one's ripe for a backdoor cover because I don't know. The Buccaneers have taken their foot off the gas before, and they've had some issues in the secondary. They won't take their foot off the gas till they know the game's won, but I still think Chicago will be able to cover here.
Yeah, I like Chicago too. It feels like Tampa's secondary is just like in bad shape, and I feel like even if the Buccaneers are up by 2 touchdowns, like you said, the Bears could come back with Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney and get a touchdown late in the game to cover the spread. Kind of see that, it just feels like a backdoor cover type of game, given the situation with Tampa Bay secondary. As you said, Sherman's out now as well, so they're down 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks against a good receiving core. I know Justin Fields doesn't have much experience, but still, like I feel like he's played pretty well, and I think he'd be competent enough to get the backdoor cover if they even need it. But I don't know if they need it though. Like Tampa is coming off extra rest, as you said, but I think that's negated by the fact that they play the Saints next week. It's a big game for them because the Saints are second in that division. It's a big rivalry. So if the Saints beat the Buccaneers next week, suddenly Tampa doesn't have a big lead in that division. Only a half a game. So I think that they're going to be more focused for that. I don't think they're going to take Chicago very seriously. And Tampa's had only 2 big wins this year by a large margin. The first one was against Atlanta in week 2. And that was a close game until Matt Ryan threw 2 pick sixes. So, I mean, that could happen again, but against an injured secondary, probably not. And then the second one was the Dolphins game. The Dolphins are up 10-7. Jacoby Brissett got hurt. He couldn't scramble around. And plus, we know how bad Miami is when they're missing some of their key players. Like Devontae Parker was out in the game, and Miami has some other injuries. So, I think this is going to be a closer game. Outside of the Eagles, this is my favorite pick of the late afternoon slate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I might like this one better than the Eagles, but that's just because I can't trust the Eagles or Raiders. That's just like 2 of my teams that it's like, all right, if you had to pick 2 teams you're bad at handicapping, I'd be like, those are 2 of them for sure. But yeah, I think these are easily the 2 that if I had to bet on 2 of them, they would be these 2 games.
Yeah. Chris saying Brandon Staley is the future of coaching with his aggression analytics. I agree. I mean, I like how aggressive he is. And I should say I liked how aggressive Sean McDermott was in the Monday night game. I know it didn't work out, but like out of 100 times, I feel like Josh Allen's going to get that sneak. Like, I mean, there's probably math you could do for it, but I feel like it's like 75 out of 100 he gets that sneak. So I like that decision too.
Funny you should ask for math. He actually leads
Okay.
the NFL in 4th and 1 conversion since coming into the league in 2018. He has 13. The next most, tied with 10, are Ezekiel Elliott and Lamar Jackson. So if you're trusting anyone in that circumstance, it's Josh Allen. Jeffrey Simmons just made a great play,
Yeah.
and you just have to tip your cap to him. That's what McDermott did after the game. But I agree, 100% the right call, just
Yeah.
not the right result.
Although, as someone on ESPN or FS1 said, I don't know which, the Bills are missing Taylor Lewan,
Oh,
so
yep.
or they could have given it to Derrick Henry at that point, right? So
Yep, I believe that was Chris Broussard on
yeah,
FS1, because I watched that today, and I had, it was like probably like 10 a.m. and I've been working 2 hours, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, oops. All right, last of the late afternoon games, Texans at the Cardinals. When you have the worst team in the NFL playing at the only undefeated team, you're going to have a spread like this. This line to open up, Cardinals minus 17 and a half, up to 18. So who do you like in this game?
Oh my goodness, do I hate this game more than any game probably we'll see this year. I have the Texans penciled in here. I'm not betting them. I've been burned by Davis Mills twice this year, but I made a pledge to myself. I was like, no matter how high the spread is, I'm not betting Davis Mills. Here I am choosing Davis Mills though, and I wrote in all capitals, I really don't want to be on Davis Mills again. But the Cardinals are playing on Thursday Night Football against the Packers. They're undoubtedly going to care more about that game than this game. This one they could probably win in their sleep. They're not going to care enough to, if they get up late in the game, they probably rest their starters, I would think, because they're on a short week. So maybe they go up 28 and then they just pull all their starters for the whole fourth quarter, and the Texans are able to get 10 points and salvage a push or a cover there. So I just, there's no value here with Arizona at all. Like, they could win this game 56-0 if they wanted to. But I just don't know what the motivation is going to be with that game against the Packers coming up soon. And meanwhile, we've seen Davis Mills look good at times, and the Texans defense do well at times. So, maybe they show up this game. Maybe the Cardinals aren't as focused on stopping them or trying to preserve their bodies and just try not to take too many big hits before Thursday night once they get up. So I've got the Texans penciled in. I have no confidence in this. I would not bet this unless I was forced to. But yeah, I'm going to pencil in the Texans. The Cardinals will win this one. So somehow I think the money line of minus 1,600 is something I would rather bet than Davis Mills plus 18.
Yeah, probably just put this in a parlay or something with the money line.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't see Houston win this game, I should say. Yeah, this is, if you're looking for any motivation, I think Parrott said it. DeAndre Hopkins and JJ Watt is a revenge game for them of sorts. But it's hard to be like that. That vengeful when you're favored by 18. It just seems like it's a new coaching staff. Like, if Bill O'Brien was still there, I could see them really trying hard. But it's a new regime, it's a new quarterback. A lot of new players. The Texans made a lot of moves this offseason, so it's barely it's barely the same team. So I can't bet this game either. Like, if the Cardinals weren't coming off that big win against the Browns, and if they didn't have a game coming up Thursday night, like if they're coming off a loss and they had an ordinary opponent next week, I feel like, okay, you could say maybe I'm gonna take Arizona here, or bet them, I should say. But yeah, they play Thursday night. They're coming off a big win. I don't think we're going to see their A+ effort. At the same time, though, the Texans just lost 31-3 at Indianapolis, and Arizona is better than Indianapolis. So I can't back the Texans. I'm not going to back Davis Mills again. Not going to make the same mistake. So I'm going to be on Arizona at minus 18, but I'm not going to bet this game.
I might end up changing my pick. It's not going to matter, because under no circumstance will I bet it, unless they're like, all right, the Texans have to start a Kendall Hinton type of quarterback this week, or if the Cardinals had to do that, then that would be even worse. But that's not going to happen. And yeah, I agree on the revenge angle. Like, Hopkins and Watt are going to want to play well, but it's not the same. If Bill O'Brien was there, they would be amped up out of their minds. But they'll probably play really well early, and then late in the game, they won't be playing as much because they'll be up big and getting ready for Thursday.
So Chris is saying, is it possible the Texans are underrated? So I don't think so. I mean, since Davis Mills took over, they lost to the Panthers by 15. They lost to the Bills by 40. And they lost to the Colts by 28. And in between, they had a close game against the Patriots. So I feel like that New England game was the outlier. I don't see that happening in this game. Maybe against some weaker opponents, they kind of have a fluky, 3 to 7 point loss. But I don't think they're underrated. I think they're pretty terrible. They have so many holes in their roster. Davis Mills is not a good quarterback, and Laramie Tunsil's out. Don't forget that. Like, that's a huge deal. Losing Tunsil, I kind of underestimated that. Like, as soon as I saw Tunsil was out last week, I shouldn't have taken Houston. That was a big mistake on my part. But yeah, like maybe if they were fully healthy, I could maybe see taking them. But Houston has a ton of injuries. Also, there's a question about Tyrod Taylor maybe coming back. I haven't heard him possibly coming back, but then again, like, the NFL is kind of slow with their news with injured reserve players. So maybe he returns this week. And if so, I would definitely be on Houston at this number. But assuming I don't think Taylor's coming back this week.
I don't either. I don't think the number would be this high if they had any inkling that he was coming back. I think he's got one more week after this.
Yeah, they're going to be more competitive with him, but not now. All right, next game, the Sunday night game is Colts at the 49ers. So this line's been bouncing around. It opened San Francisco -4, went down to 3.5, and now it's 4 in some of the sports books. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm penciling in the Colts here. I wrote "stay tuned" in my notes because I want to see the injury report for this one big time, because Xavier Rhodes is banged up again. And I feel like he's key to that defense. The defense plays very well when Xavier Rhodes is on the field. When he's not, that secondary can give up some pretty big plays. And I know the 49ers are coming off a bye week, and they've had extra time to prepare for the Colts and get healthy. And the Colts are possibly looking ahead to a date with the Titans. But I think there's less look ahead for the Colts in this one, because if they lose, then they're in like dire straits against the Titans next week. Like, they're 2-4. If they were 3-3, I could see them overlooking the 49ers, but I think they'll be more motivated for this one than maybe San Francisco will. The other thing I'm worried about is Jimmy G might be coming back from the 49ers to start. I just have concerns because there was that one game, I forget if it was last year or the year before, where he was due to come back from injury, and he played against the Dolphins, and he just wasn't healthy at all, and he looked terrible, and the Dolphins blew them out, I think, or at least covered with ease, because they were like 8-point underdogs and won outright. Yeah. And I just worry, what if Jimmy G's not fully healthy? Like, I think it's a leg injury this time as opposed to an arm injury. I can't remember, but that's definitely something that I have concern about, because Trey Lance is banged up and might not be around. So if Jimmy G has an aggravation of the injury or anything, Nate Sudfeld could be the one coming into the game, and you really don't want him in most circumstances. Like, he's a fine. Usually, if you say a guy's a fine third string guy, you don't want him coming in the regular season unless you're looking to blow a game to get a draft pick like the Eagles were. So I have enough concerns about the 49ers quarterback situation that I want to be on the Colts, but I just got to see the injury report first with Xavier Rhodes. We'll see, because the number 3.5. I've never liked betting favorites at 3.5 if I can help it. So I'm leaning on the Colts, but I will announce my pick on Sunday officially at the latest.
Yeah, this is one we're going to have to wait on. Not just because of Xavier Rhodes, but because of Braden Smith. That's another issue. The 49ers have some issue. So they have problems in the secondary, as we know. They're down several cornerbacks, but they still have Nick Bosa and a bunch of great pass rushers on the defensive line. So if the Colts are down multiple offensive linemen, that's really going to hurt them. But if the Colts can protect, like if they're only down Quentin Nelson on the offensive line, it should give Carson Wentz plenty of time to find T.Y. Hilton back. I mean, his return was huge last week, and he only played 50% of the snaps. Like, he's going to be more involved this week against a secondary that's not very good. And so I really like Hilton and Michael Pittman against that secondary. But Wentz really needs time in the pocket to find them. Like that I feel like that's the key. And then also, like you said, we don't know about Garoppolo's status or Trey Lance. Like, we don't know who's going to start a quarterback yet. The line moving up to 4 gives me some pause, because I like you had the Colts penciled in. Maybe this line moving from 3.5 to 4 is someone knowing something. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 24 hours if news comes out. But yeah, like I said, right now I'm on the Colts, but that could change later in the week.
Yeah, and I think the only way this line moves like significantly would be if Jimmy G suffered a setback and he and Lance weren't able to play. So you're not missing anything by not betting it at this point. Like I know it's hovering around a couple key numbers, but it's not going to like go shooting through any of them unless there's some massive injury we didn't know about. And I think we're getting to the point in this podcast where Braden Smith might be the new Cordy Glenn for us. We're just eagerly awaiting his return, and we don't know if or when it will come.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case. Maybe they should just sign Cordy Glenn and get it over with. Then we won't talk about him as much. All right, the Monday night game, Saints at the Seahawks. The line open up, Saints -4.5. It's up to 5. I like this game a lot. I'm curious to hear if you're on the same side as me. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Seahawks in this one. I get that the Saints are coming off a bye. They have a rest advantage. And the Seahawks just played 71 defensive snaps against the Steelers in a tough overtime loss. But the spread seems pretty high for a road favorite here. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like the Saints have earned this yet. They've been kind of hit or miss this year. You'd assume that their offense would be able to move the ball against the Seahawks defense, which has been porous at times this year. But, they're still down Michael Thomas. They don't have a ton of receiving weapons. Marquez Callaway's starting to come on. Like, he started the year slowly. But I don't know. I just have some concerns. Like, they're not deep at any position. Like, Alvin Kamara will do some damage. But, if Jameis Winston has a tough game, he's not going to be able to take advantage of the Seahawks secondary, which – looked good at times last week. I know they were playing Ben Roethlisberger, so it's kind of like, all right, Ben Roethlisberger, whatever. But thought rookie Trey Brown looked pretty good, 4th rounder out of Oklahoma. So that could make a big difference. If he can step up across from DJ Reed, I know those dudes are on the smaller side, I believe. But and the other thing I look at too is Geno Smith looked really good for the Seahawks. Like, he was just solid. He had one mistake, and unfortunately, it came for him in overtime at the worst possible time. And it wasn't even like that bad of a play by him. TJ Watt just punched out a fumble. So, like, guys make that mistake at the NFL level all the time. He was really hard on himself after the game. I felt bad for Geno. Like, thought he did a good job. So, I think he's played well enough, though, to move this ball on the Saints defense. They'll need to run the ball. The Saints are the second best team against the run in the NFL. They're allowing just 79 rushing yards per game. But that's a little bit skewed because they've only played 5 games, and one of them was the game against the Packers, where the Packers ran the ball, I think, like 9 times for like 10 yards because they were down so much. So I think that the Seahawks should be able to move better. Their offensive line played really well against a solid Steelers defense too. So I don't know if the Seahawks win outright here, but if we're getting +5 for them at home, where their home field advantage is really good against a team that's not great by any means, I like the Seahawks here quite a bit. So I got 2 to 3 units on them.
Yeah, I love Seattle. This line makes no sense to me. I made the spread Seattle -1, so I'm 6 points off. The computer model has it in New Orleans -2, which probably more reasonable, and it's 3 points off with 2 key numbers. The advanced spread in this game was Saints -3, so this line moved 2 points for seemingly no reason. I mean, I know Seattle lost to Pittsburgh, but they covered the spread. It's not like they played a bad game or anything. And the Saints are coming off bye, so they didn't obviously do anything impressive last week. So I don't know why the spread moves so much. I feel like we're getting great line value with the Seahawks. And the Saints, like, as you're saying, like, I don't think they deserve to be, favored by this many points on the road. If you look at their wins this year, so they beat the Packers when the Packers kind of like loafed that game. Like, they didn't really show up. So the Saints won that one easily. Then they beat the Patriots by 2 touchdowns. And those 2 touchdowns came off pick sixes that were dropped by Patriot receivers. Then they beat the Redskins by 11. As I said earlier, though, Jameis Winston threw a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. So it was really should have been a 26-22 victory for the Saints. And with that 4-point win, they don't cover the spread. I like betting backup quarterbacks as well. It worked last week with Geno Smith. It has to be on a good team. Maybe you can't say the Seahawks are a good team, but I don't think they're a bad team either. I think they played hard for Geno Smith, and Geno Smith played pretty well for the most part. Yeah, like you said, he made that mistake in overtime, but it's against TJ Watt. Like, a lot of quarterbacks are going to get strip sacked by TJ Watt. There's public money coming in on the Saints despite this high line. And the Saints might be looking ahead to Tampa Bay. I mentioned the Buccaneers possibly looking ahead to the Saints. The Saints coming off the bye might see Seattle, and then 6 days later, not even a full work week, they have to take on the Buccaneers. So if I'm the Saints, I'm thinking like, okay, we can beat Geno Smith. Let's really focus on taking on Tom Brady and have a good game plan for him. So I think this could be a look ahead situation for the Saints. One other thing I'm waiting on, and this might be my pick of the month if it's the case. The Saints have been missing a couple of offensive linemen before the bye. We'll see if Teron Armstead returns, but if he's not back, I think that's going to be helpful for Seattle. So yeah, this could be my pick of the month, but at the very least, it's going to be like a 4 or 5 unit play.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point with the look ahead too. Like New Orleans is going to be focused on that Tampa Bay game because even if they fall out of the playoff race in the NFC, like that's going to be something they can hang their hat on. Like they beat Tampa Bay again because they beat them twice last year, and they're going to want revenge on Tampa Bay beating them in the playoffs and sending Drew Brees into an early retirement. So I like that quite a bit, and I definitely, one of my big mistakes last week was betting Ben Roethlisberger as a 5-point favorite. That was betting a bad quarterback as a favorite because I was afraid of what Geno Smith might show. And I was like, I was confident enough in Smith too. I was like, I liked him. I liked what I saw, but I don't know how he's going to do. And, he showed very well. I think he's going to have a chance to lead Seattle to some wins if they're playing weak enough competition. And I think the Saints, the Saints and the Seahawks, the Saints are probably a little bit better, but the Seahawks aren't terribly far behind. Especially if their young players keep stepping up on defense. I'm focusing on that Trey Brown dude, but if their secondary can come together a little bit better and just not give up like massive gains every play, they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, betting bad quarterbacks as larger than 3-point favorites. Like I feel like the Saints, or at least Jameis Winston, doesn't deserve to be a 5-point road favorite over anyone except for the dregs of the NFL, like the Texans or the Lions. Not even the Jaguars. I feel like that would be too high. I think the spread's way too high. So I like my eyes popped out of my head when I saw this. I was like, I had Seattle as a favorite, and like I'm 6 points off. Like usually, like not more than 3 or 3.5 points off of any game, but it's pretty rare occasion that it's this many points. The Think Man says the only concern I have with the Seahawks is the Saints are coming off a bye. So I looked it up. Sean Payton is 8-6 against the spread off a bye, which is like a winning record, but not great. It's not like he has some prolific record like Andy Reid or anything. And that was with Drew Brees. I feel like Jameis Winston is not going to be as helpful coming off a bye as Drew Brees was for Sean Payton.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that 8-6 that's not something that you look at and say, I gotta bet that. So I agree there.
Yeah. One last question before we get to a couple other things. What Rich asks, what is wrong with Jamal Adams? Like he said, he's the greatest in the world in that intro. Maybe in terms of blitzing as a safety, like he's pretty good at that, but he can't cover. He's really bad at coverage. And that's kind of been the case, like with the Jets. He got off to a nice start in his career, but it seems like he's regressed in that regard every year in coverage. Like I said, he's still really good at blitzing, but he hasn't been good in coverage in a while.
Yeah, he's got to put in a little work there to improve that because he's so good in the box and near the line of scrimmage, but he can't play back there as much. And, we saw him have a chance at an interception off of a deflected pass, and it kind of hit the ground. Great that he was getting, I think, jarred by Chase Claypool at the time. But it's like, if you're going to say you're the greatest in the world, you got to play a little bit better around the ball and in coverage. So hopefully he can bounce back from that. Otherwise, the Seahawks and him are going to have a tough time agreeing on a long-term contract. Can't remember. They might have already done that, but I can't remember.
Yeah, the Seahawks don't have a first-round pick because of him this year, which is pretty. No. It's pretty rough. All right, let's get to Survivor. So this is what you have. So I'll let you study what you've had before and then I'll make my pick and then you can make yours. So you went Niners, Broncos, Cardinals, Bills, Patriots, Rams. And so I'm going to get to my pick. So I went Niners, Browns, Broncos, Bills, Vikings, Rams. This week's an easy choice if you have Arizona available. They're 18-point favorites, as we were saying. The Cardinals are not going to lose to the Texans unless something catastrophic happens, like half their team gets injured. This is kind of like a bye week if you have Arizona. But there are tons of big favorites this week, and I feel like you could choose any one of them and move on. So with that in mind, who are you taking this week?
Yeah, I have the the two biggest favorites on the slate already chosen in Arizona and Los Angeles. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I think the Bucks cover 12 and a half, or the Bears cover 12 and a half. But I can't imagine the Bucks losing that game. Like, it would take a lot. And Tom Brady's actually going to want revenge in that one because the Bears beat him last year on Thursday Night Football with Nick Foles, I believe,
Right.
in a very, very close game where Brady didn't have his receivers. So, yeah, I think Tampa Bay is a pretty safe pick there. I'm happy with that. But those three are the obvious picks. Take Arizona if you can, but the Rams and Buccaneers are fine as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Any one of those three definitely works out. If for some reason you've taken all three already, you could take the Patriots going against a rookie quarterback with Bill Belichick, or another one that's good is the Packers. I know we both like Washington to cover, but it's still the Packers should be able to win that game. All right, let's get to the teaser. Here's what I have for the teaser. I have Dolphins plus 8.5, Patriots -1. Just talking about the Patriots winning against Zach Wilson. I think it's a shady point spread, so maybe that wins. Maybe that means the Patriots win by 3 instead of 10, like we think they might. But I still think they win the game. I don't like taking the favorites there, but I couldn't really find another underdog to bet up. But the Dolphins plus 2.5 up to 8.5. I like a lot. I don't see Atlanta winning in a blowout. I mean, Atlanta only beat the Jets by 7. I know they're up by more, but still their defense is so bad that even if the Dolphins need it, they can get a backdoor cover on this teaser line. So that's who I have for my teaser.
Yeah, I like that. And even I'm on the Falcons -2.5, but I'm fine with the 8.5 here on the Dolphins because I think that game's going to fall in like a 3 to 6 point range either way. So, yeah, I like this a lot. I would bet this. This is probably the one I would recommend. Don't bet any of the massive lines in teasers, by the way. Those, like, I know you like to be like, oh, I could get 24 points with the Texans, but the difference between 18 and 24 is not that big. Like, it means they're getting crushed either way. So, like, don't be betting any of those. I would recommend.
Yeah, and don't bet them the other way either. Like, don't go Arizona 18 down to 12.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you want that, just bet Arizona. Like, because like, what are the odds that it's going to land between 13 and 17? Like, pretty slim, right? I mean, either Arizona's going to win this going away, or it's going to be a close game that they're sleepwalking through and they win by 10. It just feels like it's just a bad idea to do that. Like in a teaser, like I always say, you want to make sure you get 3, 4, 6, and 7. And I feel like we're getting that with both these teams.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. That's it for this week. Anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. I've been tweeting out my picks, my favorite picks on a weekly basis. They've been doing good. The Twitter picks have been good, even though my overall record's been a little spotty in recent weeks. You can also head over to sportingnews.com, check out all our NFL content. We'll have a ton of stuff around the Thursday night game with injury updates and just general, like, who are these people that are playing? Because we're going to have everyone from Dearness Johnson to Kendall Hinton in action. So who knows what type of content we'll have. And we always have fantasy stuff, picks against the spread, best bets. And I'll share a lot of that on Twitter. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Jacob Kamenker. And yeah, let's keep enjoying this crazy football season.
Sounds good. I'm at walterfootball.com. Tons of draft content from Charlie Campbell. As usual, I'm going to be posting my mock draft update Wednesday morning. So actually, even if you're up late tonight, you'll see it around 1 a.m. So looking forward to that. We're going to be adding a third round to the mock draft soon, either this weekend or the next, depending on what my schedule is. And then fantasy rankings for week 7 are up as well. And then pick updates throughout the week. We're gonna have Thursday thoughts, Saturday notes, and then final thoughts on Sunday. So check those out. Again, visit the website or click like button, share this video, comment below, visit the link in the description and all that. That would help us out a lot. But yeah, otherwise, I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.